Giuliani himself came out and expressed that Mr. Trump reimbursed me for the money that was spent to pay Stormy Daniels.
And did you tell Chris Como that you had no access to Mr. Trump during October and November of 2016?
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're referring to.
Your interview with Chris Como.
I would need to see the document.
Did you also tell Chris Como that you made these payments without telling Mr. Trump because you wanted to protect Mr. Trump?
And I was protecting Mr. Trump.
And you told him that you made these payments without telling him?
When I said that, if that's what I said to Chris Cuomo, yes, that was my line.
And if this unsupported claim was true, then it would be part of an ongoing investigation as evidence of a crime, and the Department of Justice would not let you discuss it during your testimony here today. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Someone's time has expired. Did you answer?
Yes, I did want to say one last thing. Not only did I lie to the American people, I lied to the First Lady. When the President called me and I was sitting in a car with a friend of mine, and he had me speak to her and explain to the First Lady. So the answer is you're not accurate, and I don't feel good about any of this, and this was not my intention.
Wow, that's some amazing stuff. Welcome back. Part of the congressional hearing for President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, that took place earlier this week back on Wednesday. You saw our Congressman Greg Steube for Florida's 17th District interviewing him, and now Congressman Steube is back on the Sun Coast from Washington to join us and discuss the Cohen hearing as well as what you're working on in Washington. First of all, you had so many people watching you. What was the reaction? I mean, you were talking to me just that this was an amazing, you didn't even know that the cameras were going to be feeding this nationwide.
Yeah, we didn't, nobody told the members of the committee that every major network was going to be carrying it live. There was obviously a ton of press in the committee room and then outside. And so you figured, you know, Fox News or CNN were going to be carrying maybe the live stream, but I didn't realize until after the meeting how many news syndicates and online were doing it live through the whole...
We didn't even have soap operas that day. We didn't even have our noon news. This was big news. This was live breaking as it happened, and you were right in the middle of it. What was it like being there? What was the atmosphere in that room?
Well, and it's interesting too because you're really being a part of history now. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was really my very first real congressional committee hearing, and probably one of the biggest congressional hearings that any member of Congress has had the opportunity to sit through. So I'm blessed to have the opportunity to represent the Sun Coast in Congress, but also have the opportunity to sit on that committee and judiciary, where a lot of these issues are going to be discussed and debated.
And the discussion of these issues is not just a one and done. This is a continuation, but this a very big sort of first step in the testimony in this committee.
Yeah, he brought up several other names of people within the Trump organization I had never heard of, and I'm sure most people have never heard of. So the question now is going to be, is the chairman, Mr. Cummings, going to now subpoena those individuals to come in and testify, which he can. The committee has subpoena power. So that's going to be the next thing, is are some of these people that he mentioned that are now going to be part of the congressional hearing process.
This is the Congressional Oversight Committee, correct? Pretty good nomination to be on a committee like this right out of the blocks, isn't it?
And I said also on Judiciary, which there, in my opinion, the Democrats are just trying to set the stage for some type of impeachment proceedings. And the impeachment proceedings pursuant to the Constitution have to originate from the Judiciary Committee of the House. So I also sit on that committee. So when we start having those type of discussions or witnesses, I'll be able to question and be a part of that discussion as well.
Greg Steube, you jumped right into the deep end, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm right in all the middle of all the fun stuff. It's been very interesting. Taking part of something that was such a big piece of this Congress and having the opportunity to ask some of the questions that I did.
I don't want to get too much into the inside baseball stuff, but since you have an R next to your name, there's a little bit of strategy there in how Mr. Cohen was attacked, I guess, during his testimony, right?
Well, there's a lot of challenges because when you're in the minority, you don't have the votes to do anything. So in the beginning, and I think your viewers need to know this, we didn't have those evidence, the documents that he provided as evidence, until 7:54 a.m., 2 hours before the hearing. The rules require that we were to have those documents 24 hours before the hearing. And Chair Meadows, or Congressman Meadows, made a motion that we needed to delay the proceedings 24 hours in compliance with the rules. We were overruled. The Democrats overruled us against their own rules of the committee. And so you're already kind of fighting against that. We don't have the ability in the minority to overcome any of the rules processes. But it's very challenging when you're dumped a whole bunch of documents 2 hours before a hearing to try to prepare and ask questions.
Well, I know exactly. I know exactly the kind of deadlines you're on, because we get deadlines like that in the news business, and you have to go through it quickly and try and find the low-hanging fruit. But you really had to get into some details with this. Hang on there. We're going to get into some more details when we come back. We are just getting started right now with Congressman Greg Steube. We will continue after a quick break. Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is ABC 7 at 7. The bottom of the hour, and we'll go right back to the top of the news, being joined now by Congressman Greg Steube, part of the committee that interviewed President Trump's former lawyer earlier this week. It was great theater. We're going to discuss that. Also, a gun bill that's come up. But let's get back to this Cohen hearing. This had everybody riveted. And yet, here we are, this guy who's already been convicted of lying to Congress, and he's coming back to testify before Congress, and everybody's hanging on every word. Are we giving this a little bit too much credence?
If you watch my remarks, the beginning of my remarks talks about just that. There are so many things that we could be working on to improve the lives of Americans, and we are spending time listening to a convicted liar who lied to Congress. He didn't just lie to, he was convicted of lying to Congress, not just in his written statements, but in his testimony, and then after his testimony went out and publicly lied about his testimony. So you have somebody who lied every time he presented before a congressional committee, and during the proceedings of that hearing this week, he also lied. We had like 6 different instances where he had contradicted himself from the other testimony. So, I said in my comments, I don't know a juror in America that would believe anything that he has to say. So why are we, and this would be my question to the Democratic chair, bringing in somebody that we know is convicted of lying to Congress?
And furthermore, why are we, the American public, so riveted by this?
I mean, I guess it's because of everything going on and who he was within Trump's well, not administration, but within his business.
Let me ask you this. Is there such hatred of our 45th president inside the Beltway that stuff like this is going to continue?
This is going to continue in every oversight committee, in every judiciary committee. Everything has been about the 2016 election. In my opinion, Democrats haven't gotten over the fact that Trump won 2 years ago. And all of their focus on each one of these hearings has been bringing in people like Michael Cohen to try to set up some stage or some precipice to allow for impeachment proceedings. They're just trying to find something that they can hang their coat on that rack, and so they can move forward with impeachment proceedings. And it's just sad that we are spending valuable committee time dealing with something like this when there are real issues out there facing Americans.
Are we so factionalized or in our own tribes, if you will, that we can't listen to the other side? Are you finding these roadblocks there as you're trying to work through your freshman session there inside the swamp?
Yeah, I mean, I will say, and I knew Washington was broken when I got elected. I talked about it in my campaign. But when you get up there, you fully realize how broken it is up there and how divided it is and how partisan it is and how hard it is just to work on things that you can get bipartisan support on to improve the lives of Americans. One of the things I want to work on, we talked about before, is a veterans bill that I was going to work on. But it is so partisan now. I know we want to talk about H.R. 8, and there was a motion to recommit, an amendment on that bill that actually, I believe it was 20 or 22 Democrats voted for, and the Republicans were able to get that on there. So I think there's some level, but it's all games and partisanship, and I'm going to try to get you here on this, and I'm going up there to try to fight for the lives of Americans, and I hope that we can really refocus the attention of these committees from going after Trump and his folks to doing something that positively affects Americans.
Well, I mean, Trump was sort of elected on his commitment to drain the swamp, but the swamp has got a plug in the drain hole that's not coming loose easy, is it?
Yeah, and I campaigned on term limits. I think term limits would be great for Congress, but you have people that have been up there for 20, 30, 40 years, and they get ingrained in the system. And that's what's so great about Florida's system of term limits, and that's why I think we should have it in D.C.
Very good point. Let's talk about H.R. 8. You mentioned it real briefly. This is something that your Republican counterpart here from this region, Vern Buchanan, voted for. You voted against. Explain why you voted against it and really what you see this bill as.
Yeah, well, let me first explain today, as the law works today, anytime you go and purchase a firearm at any firearms dealer, you are required to have a background check. There is not a gun show loophole. If you go to a gun show in Sarasota at Robarts Arena and you buy from a firearms dealer, they have to do a background check.
You're still going to get background check, yeah.
No matter where you purchase a firearm, you're going to get a background check. What this bill now does, and I have a friend of mine that we go shooting occasionally, he's a former military officer as well. If I were to take my rifle and we were at the range and I were to hand him my rifle to practice, and he hand me his handgun to practice, the moment you've made that transfer without doing a background check on him, you have violated the law and you can go to jail for a year, because you have transferred that firearm from me to him, and then he would have to do a background check on me when he transfers it back from him to me.
Even though it's not a legally binding document that you've exchanged, it's just the exchange of the firearm itself.
Because the law that was in H.R. 8, it was possession. So when you transfer possession of that firearm from one person to the other, you would be required to do a background check. And what's crazy to me is the Democrats even admit that this bill would do nothing to prevent any of these mass tragedies. It would do nothing to prevent Parkland. The shooter in Parkland obtained his firearm with a background check.
Right.
The shooter at the Pulse nightclub, there was a background check conducted on him. He passed the background check. The shooter just recently, weeks ago, in my district in Sebring, that murdered 5 women in a bank, he went to a firearms dealer, purchased a firearm, they did a background check. So they even admit that passing this bill would do nothing to stop any of these mass tragedies in the United States. It's just something that they are trying politically motivated to do, and I don't think we should be infringing upon the constitutional rights of Americans to be, who every day lawfully follow the law in their possession of firearms, just for a soundbite for the Democrats.
So this is, it's not necessarily anything that's going to solve a problem. Will it, though, solve a piece of a problem, or is this just something more to build on as folks work toward more stringent gun control?
I don't think it solves any problem, in my personal opinion.
Okay.
All it solves is affecting the infringing upon the rights of law-abiding citizens. If there is an instance where there's a transfer of a firearm from, let's say, a criminal to a criminal, do you think that that criminal is going to do a background check on the other criminal that he's transferring that firearm?
I'm doubting there's going to be a lot of formalities observed.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So, like, I mean, if it was real reform that is going to, I would support anything that would keep the firearms out of those that are mentally ill, out of the arms and hands of criminals. If there were things, but there's already laws on that. Even in Florida, anybody that's adjudicated mentally ill can't obtain a firearm, and when they do the background check, they can't get it. This gun show loophole that they talk about, if you purchase it from a firearms dealer, they're required to do a background check. So it really doesn't affect the purposes of what they say it's going to affect, and it's really going to infringe upon the rights of millions of Americans who have their firearms every day.
Okay, well explained. Anything else you're working on up there as you head headlong into this session? There's a lot happening.
Yeah, I talked on the campaign trail about really going after immigration reform. I'm in the process of putting a bill together. I sit on the Judiciary Committee and the Subcommittee for Immigration. So I sit on the committee that will hear that bill. I know that the Democrats probably aren't going to hear my bill, but I'm certainly going to work on it. I think we need to end chain migration in this country. I think we need to end the visa lottery system. So those are things that I'm going to be working on in a piece of legislation that I should drop in the next couple of weeks.
But again, working on legislation and getting it to be heard are two entirely different things.
Again, when you're in the minority, it is up to the majority chairman as to what bills they hear through their committee. And if they don't want to hear that bill, they're not going to hear that bill. And it's the same with what goes on to the floor. If Speaker Pelosi doesn't want a bill on the floor, she can prevent it from being on the floor, even if it went through the committee process. So as a Republican, you're probably not going to get a lot of things done that you want to get done unless it's something that's very bipartisan. I'm looking on the veterans legislation that I'll work on. I also sit on the Veterans Affairs Committee to try to get a Democrat to work with me on some of the things that I'm going to work on, and then you might have a better chance of getting things done.
And a bipartisan bill has a lot more chance of being heard and going through the various steps toward becoming a law.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, in Pelosi's house, everything she's put on the floor has been Democratic. But I think once the Congress, we have 2 years in this Congress, I think as things start to move forward, if you have a lot of co-sponsors and bipartisan co-sponsorships, I think you've got a much stronger chance of getting things done.
All right. A busy February. March is going to be busy as well. Thank you very much for stopping in, Greg.
Thanks for having me anytime.
All right. When we come